Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll call the roll. Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dottori?
Yes.
And Mr. Barker?
Yes.
All right, first item on the agenda is to approve or amend the agenda items. I would like to propose that we move commissioners' time to immediately following this item where we approve the agenda. If there aren't any objections, we'll go ahead and do that.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Mr. Gertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dottori?
Yes.
And Mr. Barker?
Yes.
All right, so first up will be commissioners' time. First thing we have is I wanted to address the issue of cell towers. At the last meeting, I did mention that cell towers had been considered by former boards, and I just simply wanted to bring it to the attention of this board. Between the last meeting and this meeting, I have discussed it with staff, and at this time, staff is not recommending to construct any cell towers. We don't feel it's part of the mission necessarily, or that's in the park aesthetics. There, of course, are some exceptions, one of which is the tower at Froring Meadows. I suppose we would consider towers near infrastructure like high power lines, things of that nature, but as the two that were proposed to us were for the High Kaplan property, the Beartown property, so barring no objections, we're not proposing any cell tower construction, nor do I feel we would. That's all I have for commissioners' time.
It's a good way to start the meeting, right?
That's all I have. Do the commissioners have anything?
No.
No.
All right. Next up is to approve or amend the meeting minutes from the April board meeting. Entertain a motion.
Also move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion about the meeting minutes from the April meeting? None, we can call a vote to approve the meeting minutes. Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dottori,
Yes.
and Mr. Barker.
Yes.
All right, next up is open to the public, and I believe Mrs. Dottori wanted to address a couple of things.
Grab this one. Before we begin, on behalf of the board, I'd like to make a statement that when we say we here, we mean the commissioners, the director, all of the employees of the park, the judge. We're a team. And so when you approach the podium, we ask that you please have any concerns or comments that are addressing the park. And individual attacks are just not necessary. You can email those individuals if you'd like with those concerns, but we'd like to keep it to addressing the business of the park, please. When I call you, a lot of cell phone tower topics here. If you have an additional topic, clearly you see we're not proceeding with that, please let me know, otherwise we'll move on. Mr. Buckles, do you have anything you'd like to address?
Yes, thank you. I have copies of my letter to the commissioners about cell tower and a copy of my comments today I'd like to present to you as I leave to enter into the record. I'm going to note to start that Mr. Oros has engaged in some recreation of history, because I think if you look at the tape of the last meeting, you will find that he said that he would be making a proposal for cell towers. That appears to have changed, and I'm very happy to see that. I also have a document that I want to enter into the record. It is Lake Metro Parks Plus brochure. I received this in the mail from a supporter, I believe one who works at the Geogga Probate Court. I found it interesting for a number of reasons. On page 13, for example, they mentioned their tower building project, and it's not an ugly, destructive, unneeded cell tower, but rather a viewing tower on the recently acquired Lake Erie Bluffs. At other points, page 35, they outline improvements that they have underway in the parks. The taxpayers of Lake County are being treated as stakeholders and participants, not as people who need to be kept in the dark. They apparently don't have a John Ross springing cell towers and other secret projects on them at the last minute. They don't have to file public records requests to find what projects are being undertaken. And even those requests with this park system are very cryptic in their response. What's going on at Throwing Meadows? There's construction equipment there. We've heard nothing about this at the meetings, and there's nothing in the weekly reports. We have created a group called the Stewards of the Parks, and they are out every day in the parks on their own, and then they report back in. For example, they reported the poor signage at Swine Creek that someone ought to look into to be sure that the trails are well marked. They've also reported on the trails at Westwoods that are being kept in very, very good condition, and the signage is very good there. So we're looking for positives and negatives and information about what's going on in the park, and we'll be asking questions about that based upon their reports. This new board is a continued deterioration in the open participation that most public bodies claim they want. There are no public reports of projects and activities. The rules on public comment are designed to stifle and emasculate those comments. This seems in direct conflict with values some of you espouse at political gatherings where secret government planning is decried. It violates the spirit, if not the letter, of the open meetings laws. What do the metro parks encourage in their brochures? In places where there's already active recreation, where they love playgrounds and golf courses, that of course continues. But other natural areas are not being invaded. In those areas, there are sponsored bike rides, canoeing, paddleboard, group camping, story walks, a kids' nature club with astronomy, bird walks, and animal identification, various summer day camps for kids, getting them out into nature. There's a page devoted to volunteers. This park has not identified a volunteer of the month in at least 3 months now. Mr. Gertz, that was always one of your favorite things. You always look forward to that, volunteer of the month. We haven't seen one.
Mr. Buckles, if you could kindly wrap it up, we have about 12 more.
Sure. There's this 48-page brochure isn't on shiny paper like our recent publications. It is on recycled soy ink, environmentally responsible. What don't they have? They don't have a self-serving letter full of misrepresentations and half-truths from their probate judge. They don't sponsor a Liberty Camp, which is outside of the park mission statement and is, by the way, full of inaccuracies. For example, Continental soldiers didn't march about chanting the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was appended to the Constitution, which wasn't written and adopted until several years after the Revolutionary War was over. Mr. Orvis has not yet announced that there will be another such camp later this summer, although they did at the Tea Party the other night. Perhaps this time the park's safety standards for firearms will be followed. In essence, Lake County residents get treated as smart, environmentally conscious, participating citizens with a valued, expanding resource in their park system. We get hidden agendas, dismissive attitudes, cell towers, and treated as unruly children. Thank you.
And I did ask about the volunteer of the month, and evidently we're going to pick it back up again here.
I hope so. You have some very, very good volunteers, very great staff.
Lucy Copley.
Thank you for not proposing a cell tower at this time. I hope that in the future you also reconsider. But my question now is, why is there not a sign on Robinson Road at the entrance that says the park is in this direction? I came along because I've never been here before, and there was no sign to tell me, turn right. There should be a sign there.
Mr. Al?
I thought it was the signage.
Catherine Ullman? I'll pass. Barb Partington? I will be short, which I am.
But you're short.
Sorry about that. It's always good to have a sense of humor. At the last meeting, I asked questions about the youth hunting program. I handed each of you the questions with my contact information because I knew you were going to answer the questions right then and there. I was polite. I received no reply. I followed up with an email. No reply. I hate to be a nag, but with no reply, I resent the email again, so the four of you should have in your email boxes 2 emails from me. Given your non-responsiveness, I have to assume that as a board, and John as an executive director, that there's something being hidden. I have to assume that I've asked these set of questions for a month and had no response. Perhaps you violated ODNR policy. Perhaps you've allowed turkey hunting by children without any plan in place for location, number of turkeys to be killed, or number of permits to be given. You refused to respond to the public records request for information about the permits, saying that because children were involved, it was confidential, yet the names of children who have participated and won the lottery for children's deer hunting is posted on the website. I will continue to ask questions. I'll continue to expect answers. I will be polite. I will always be short. I will continue to assume when responses are not forthcoming that there's a hidden agenda, that there's a cover-up of possibly illegal activities taking place. I can't think of any other reason my questions wouldn't be answered. The public has a right and a responsibility to ask questions and expect answers. The Geauga Park District is a public entity, not a private club. I'm going to make a quick statement also. This flyer that came is not a good representation of the park. If you are trying to increase public opinion about the parks, there's nothing in it other than a complaint. Your pictures are nice, but they're also on the website, and these pictures that were chosen were really not your best representation. I get my mail at the post office, and for several days last week, the recycle bin was full of these. So people took them out of their post office boxes and put them in the trash. That was pretty wasteful. So whoever was responsible for this, and it's not signed, so I don't know who that is, really should rethink how you communicate with the public. That's it. If anybody wants my turkey questions again, I do have copies, and I'd be glad to give those to you after the meeting. Actually, I'm going to give you one right now for the record. Cheryl.
You're right about the picture, because I was told they were going to touch my photo up to make me look younger, but they didn't.
There you go.
You can't do that.
Patrick Robinson?
Patrick Robinson, I'm tall, of Middlefield. I don't show up at a lot of these meetings, but I do come from time to time. And it never ceases to amaze me the attitude in which people address these people. The first thing that Ms. Nattori asked was that there be no personal attacks, and the first presenter did nothing but speak a single name every other sentence. You can't even follow the same advice that you're asking of them. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a poor representation of your organization. I understand that there are issues that need to be addressed. I'm not saying that I'm in disagreement with some of those topics. They need to be talked about. But it needs to be done respectfully, and I'm tired of every time I show up in one of these meetings, it being the way that it is. To address one of your remarks, Lake Metro Parks, they've got some great programs. But I also do some work with the Lake Metro Parks, and if I wanted to be critical of Lake Metro Parks, I absolutely could be. And when I decided I wanted to be, I got an audience with the executive director, and I got an audience with his chief law enforcement officer, and I sat down in a closed room and I had words with him. I didn't come slander somebody in a public setting. That's how you handle problems. This looks too much like the political atmosphere of our country right now, and it's flat out disgusting. If people could see it, they would be ashamed of it. So it's easy for us to look at other park districts and have rose-colored glasses about what they're doing. But if I were to take you outside of this immediate area, because Northeast Ohio has some phenomenal parks, and I know you guys enjoy the parks, we have phenomenal parks. I grew up in an area that didn't have phenomenal parks. I mean, we could have griped all day long about not having parks, period. We're blessed here. Is everything done right? Probably not. Because men and women are involved, people are involved. People make mistakes, people aren't perfect. And yes, when you're in a public forum, sometimes you say things that can be misconstrued and grace needs to abound, people. We'll get a whole lot further being nice and talking about things, and heard the saying, once bitten, twice shy. You only throw it out there so many times before you try and keep things on the down low so that people don't roast you in a public setting and attack your character when they don't even know who you are. Next point that I've got is the promotional material. I talked to several people who thought that promotional material was just fine. And here's the reason why. Because rumor has gotten around about what is said in these meetings from the public to the directors. They see signs throughout the county which have become, without becoming negative, the talk of many people, and sometimes the butt of their jokes. And so a lot of people liked to see that promotional material because it was finally people in the park standing up for what has really been said instead of what is being misconstrued. So I'm asking you, as the other side of your organization, I guess, let's clean it up. Let's clean it up. Can we do that? You're speaking about people's character at this table whom you have no idea who they are.
Speaking about their behavior.
No, you're speaking character. And if we want to go back to tapes, we can get tapes and we can talk about the character attacks and the things that have been said about people at this table.
Mr. Robinson, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you with the Marine Corps?
No, sir, I was not.
You sound like it. Takes one to know one.
I apologize in advance. Catherine, no?
Several things. One is, Patrick, you had a great idea. Maybe we need to have more people see this. But I can tell you right now, we do videotape this meeting, and we do not edit it at all. And it is put on a website so that anybody who has internet access could see this home meeting. This is not a silent meeting. I mean, we have it all over the place. But I want to say thank you very much for not having cell towers. I think it's very appreciative because it's something that would concern a lot of people. My other concern is, what is the cost of this glossy item that we get in the mail? And also the number of television ads that are going on. First of all, the cost of production, but then the cost of putting it on the TV, even at 4 a.m. in the morning. I mean, really, I've been hearing from everybody the number of times they've seen it. It's a very nice one, but can anybody tell us the cost of such a thing? Because I know TV ads at 6 p.m. in the evening are expensive compared to 4 a.m., but they still cost. So hopefully someone can come up with an idea on the cost of the mailer that we received, and glossy paper, and also the cost of the TV ads.
Mary Lou? What's your last name, ma'am?
John,
Oh, thank you.
sir, I've known you for 71 years. Good morning, everyone. I've lived in Jogga County since 1969, and I love it here, and I don't plan to go anywhere. I live right on 87 across from West Woods. It's my park. I was there when they turned the first shovel for the Nature Center. I want to know, and I asked Miss Shumway back in fall of 2014, what happened to the signs? There are no signs where horses can go, no signs where bikes can go. There's no signs anywhere, only where the dogs have to be on a leash. Is that the only rule anymore? I was told by a ranger last year when I called, when I ran into bicyclers, that they can only be on paved trails. Is that still true? Is that true? Anybody know?
I can tell you, I've asked our planning department to do an inventory and analysis of our trails and to find out, because I'm a new director, what needs to be done to find trail uses, so.
Well, we're gonna put signs back up. I ran into two gentlemen from Cleveland, and they were riding their bikes in Westwoods on unpaved trails. And I said, you can't do that, I don't think. That sounds really stupid. Well, it does. And so they left. I said, go down to Frying Meadows and ride because it's paved. Or go up to Charlotte. We don't want to go any further east. Well, I don't blame them. Anyway, another thing about the signage. I had a terrible time finding this place, and I've been here before. What happened to all the signs? My car didn't know the way. And one other thing. I went to the pavilions the other day, and I see your faces on a poster with Grindel and yours, Mr. John. I don't want to see Dr. Judge Grindel looking at me every day. I'm sorry, he makes me puke.
Yeah, we really
I know.
respect that.
I know, I'm not supposed
This
to.
is a business meeting.
I know, but this is my business. I go every day.
It's
I
not
don't
a
want to see
comedy.
him.
It's not a comedy, you're making comments about people. I mean, that's,
He's a people, I
would
didn't
you
know he
like
was
somebody to
Jewish.
make comments about you?
You
Go
can
ahead.
give your
In front
opinion,
of
but
other
we're
people,
talking
that's
about
just not
business.
right.
You go right ahead.
Please.
Well, it's not right to do that to
What do you mean
anybody.
it's not right?
To make
You guys
comments about people?
are social, unsocial. You
So we're
are
gonna
a
have to
civil.
move on to Louise from Munson.
Thank you for your attention. I'm still waiting for the signs.
Last name with a K? Louise? No, you didn't. Sorry about that. Catherine. Handwriting, yep, right?
Can't miss Kathy. Keep it clean, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hanratty from Chardon Township, and I just wanted to follow up on last month's meeting. I asked some questions of the board, and I did not send a follow-up email, but I did give you each a copy with my contact information. So I just want to repeat my questions one more time, and I want to know that how do you think the changes being imposed and implemented with an increased dedication to active recreation and a resulting diminishment of the focus on conservation protects the people of Geauga County in the long term? Also, I want to know how is the power given to the executive director over the budget, the personnel, and the direction of the park benefit the county, and how does it benefit the park district? There seems to be a lack of checks and balances. And why is there no 10-year plan or 5-year plan made available to the public? We'd like to know, why is this an intentional lack of planning, or is that in the works? And do you believe that the lack of planning is beneficial to the park district or to the people of the county? And if so, how? Thank you very much.
Shall we turn it?
I'm short too. And I'll be relatively short today as well in the length of my comments, I hope. Good morning. I'm Shelley Chernin from Russell Township. I just have a few questions about the flyer, once again, which came in my mailbox. You have wonderful staff here, and usually they produce wonderful materials. This is not up to the standards of staff, and I'm wondering who prepared it. There are inaccuracies in here. It says in here that 97% of Park District property remains in its natural state. My understanding of that 97% figure is that it came from a report which stated that 3% of the Park District properties was either paved or had a roof over. So that doesn't mean that 97% is in natural state. It just means that 97% isn't paved and doesn't have a roof over it. It may be mowed, it may have a playing field, it may have a playground. There's lots of property in this park that isn't paved and doesn't have a roof over it and is not in a natural state. So this is just plain inaccurate. And in addition, to send out a flyer that attacks people in the community, talks about the few misinformed people who incorrectly make claims. It's just unprofessional. It doesn't look like it's come from your staff. And I read the weekly status reports, and I look at the vouchers that come with the board packet every month. And maybe I've missed something, but I don't see any indication that anybody in the Park District actually prepared this. It's not in the status report. I don't see vouchers that relate to the payment for it. And so I'm wondering, who did this? Who wrote it? Who paid for it? Where did this come from? If you can answer that question, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, John, we've had a lot of negative comments on that brochure. I've had nothing but good comments.
I think that speaks to Mr. Robinson's point. I don't know what to say. So,
I don't either.
yeah.
Mr. Augustine? We really have to stick to the 3 minutes today, sir.
Okay. I'm John Augustine. I'm a Parkman Township resident. First of all, I'd like to compliment you on the park maps. See, I don't complain about everything. They're really nice. One suggestion, maps oftentimes don't last very long. You open and close them, they tear along the folds real easy. I'd like to suggest maybe you get some made out of that material that won't tear. Even if you have to charge for it, maybe have some printed up and available at the desk of non-tear material that will last a long time. Regarding, I didn't hear any attacks on people, even the lady who talked about, she said she didn't like the judges, looking at the judge's picture. She didn't criticize him, she just said how it made her feel. So, and any of the other comments here have been not attacks, I don't feel. I think people have been acting pretty professional, the people from the audience who have been coming up. One of the, regarding the cell towers, I'm not going to comment about that, only that when people suggest things like cell phone towers, it kind of gives the idea that the parks are, as my friend Kathleen would say, a place, just a land bank where other things can go on, and they're not, they shouldn't be that. We shouldn't be looking at parkland as someplace where we can make money, where we can tap a lot of maple trees to sell it or give it away. The first thing should be protecting the natural areas, protecting biodiversity, and as a place for people to do recreation that's not impacting the biodiversity. All-terrain vehicles I know you decided to buy one. The comment was made that the rangers could use it to patrol the park boundaries. I'm wondering if anyone in natural resource management or any of the park naturalists have commented about the impact on that. They can be really destructive to plants and amphibians, salamanders, snakes. We don't see what's being crushed where those things go. Plus, they're noisy. It's just not the sort of thing people go to the parks to listen to as more motors. So I'd like to, I'm sure natural resource management or park naturalists, or probably there's a number of rangers that would be glad to walk the park boundaries, and likely they would detect more if there's some nefarious activity going on. If they're more quiet, they would be more likely to see it.
Last thought, Mr.
Last thought is that last year there, Mr. Orndorff talked about spotted turtles, about some underpasses to keep them from getting crushed by vehicles, and I thought that was being planned, but I haven't heard anything about it, so maybe someone can fill me in on when that will be put in this year, because I haven't heard anything, nothing's been brought up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Torre? Mrs. Torre? I was here a little late and didn't have a chance to sign in.
Okay, let me get through, I still have more
Oh,
on the
you
list.
do? I'm sorry, I
I
thought
do.
you were at the end.
Kristen Salmon?
Hi, thank Thank you so much for not putting the cell phone towers in the parks. I've never been to a meeting like this, and that's the reason I came.